Hey, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jason Flame, host of the Master Motivation Podcast, and happy Monday. Today is June 12th, 2023, and we've got a great guest today. Let me introduce him. This is Master Will Schneider, who is the owner of Elite Martial Arts locations in Central Kentucky. Currently at 4 locations with plans to expand to more. Team Elite currently has 13 vehicles that service after-school and summer camp programs at all of his locations. He has owned dojos since 2002 and plans to develop his staff into partners and build plazas for his locations. Master Schneider is also the president of the EMAC Sport Karate Circuit, and his ranks are 7th degree in Taekwondo, 5th degree Hapkido, 4th degree in Krav Maga, Kali certified instructor, Muay Thai certified instructor, and purple belt Gracie Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. He has recently joined the executive committee for Madison County Republican Party and likes to travel, read, and attend live events. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, sir. Honored to be here.
Yeah, listen, we were chatting a little bit before, we got going today. And I like to remind everybody that the purpose of this podcast in particular is, to kind of share the good, the bad, the ugly, talk about life's wins and losses. Mm-hmm. And I think anytime we can share someone's story, it may inspire or motivate someone else that's watching. So what I'd love to do as we kick things off is just give you a couple minutes to introduce yourself a little bit more, go into a little bit more detail, and more specifically, let's talk about your childhood, kind of growing up and just the beginning and work from there.
Sure. Yeah. So again, excited to be on the show. I think I met you at one of the Maya events many years ago. I think you were a coach back then.
Yes, sir.
And I think I met you at one of the VIP gold parties. I think we were in line in Vegas. I want to see the Venetian at the Tao Club or something like that.
Okay.
And I said, "Hey, you're so-and-so, right?" And yeah. And I said, "I recognize your coach." And, went from there. So really cool. And then you ran for mayor too, didn't you? Or you ran for city council or something over there?
Not yet. But I definitely serve on our Chamber of Commerce board, our Rotary Club and stuff like that. Plans to run for city council at some point, but not just yet.
Gotcha. I'm thinking of Herb Perez. I think he was mayor maybe of the town out there.
Herb Perez was definitely mayor in San Jose.
Okay.
Northern California for sure.
Yeah. Gotcha. Very cool. Well, cool. Yeah. So basically I started martial arts in 1987. 5 years old. I'll be 42 in October. Got my black belt in 89. And my dad and I started together. My mom was a tattoo artist, rest in peace. And my dad was a biker, patched biker. So I was raised that way. And, talk about a fork in the road. My dad was trying to become the local Harley Davidson dealer. And had that I went through, he did into the financing in the 80s and this and that. But had that went through, I may look a little bit different. And my upbringing would be probably quite a bit different. And then it was funny. I was telling someone this story yesterday. My dad started a motorcycle motel back in the 80s and early 90s. So it was a 14-room motel. And he bought it, and he converted it to a motorcycle motel. Made Easy Rider magazine, Super Cycle magazine. There's pictures of us in the magazine.
Awesome.
So yeah, came up doing Taekwondo, and then bought my dad's school in 2002. I was 21 years old, and in 2002 I became self-employed, and then I became a father that year. I'm 21 years old, so now I'm self-employed. I'm a dad. And on top of that, I'm reading all the Robert Kiyosaki stuff, right? All the Carlton Sheets stuff, all the, investing. I want to be the next mogul, right? So then I became a landlord that year. In September of that year, I bought a trailer park, which was obviously a great deal. No money down, owner financing, obviously it was a good deal. And then, that was how I got started in 2002 on the ownership side of things.
Wow. Well, cool stuff. First of all, I love when I get to talk to a guest and we have a little bit similar background. My dad, I was born in the 70s, but, my dad was growing up in the late 50s, early 60s. And he was all into Harleys, man. He built his own bikes, told me some crazy stories of riding with, the Hells Angels and the stuff that went on with that. He actually went on later in life. He was in construction for most of my life. But at one point he was the owner of a magazine called Southern California Bikers. oh gosh, what's the rest of it? But so it was a cool guide that he was doing, and then he got back into the Harleys all over again, and he was sending me pictures of when like Sons of Anarchy first came out and how cool that was, and just some really neat stuff. So just some similarities, right? And as you know, a lot of people know, I got a few tattoos myself too. So
you know what's weird? I'm getting
working on that.
You know what's weird? I'm getting my first one coming up soon.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you a story on that in a minute. But yeah, it's fun. I was watching SOA, right? Which I hear Charlie Hunden's coming back and they're going to do some, sequel or whatever. But I guess he's making a return. They're going to somehow make it work.
That would be cool.
That would be cool.
The end of it just left me like, oh man, come on. Hey, you went dark just a little bit, the background. That. Yeah, it just
noticed that.
I don't know if there's a little light we can get on you. There we go. That's better.
Yeah.
Cool, man. So you started 21 years old, though. 21 years old. You took over your dad's school in 2002.
Yes, sir.
Man, that's, again, I was 19, 20 when I first started my first program. And I wanted to be self-employed. My dad was self-employed. Mm-hmm. Didn't want to work for somebody. That was just kind of the entrepreneur side of how I grew up and what I saw. Tell me a little bit more about that, taking over the school and being a young school owner.
Yeah. So, it's funny. One of the questions I think for later on, you asked about what someone inspired you. Well, I grew up going to the Andrew Wood stuff, going to all those old, the original, pioneers and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I got into it after playing football in high school. And then I was chief instructor for a little while. And I remember I was drinking beer with my dad one night. I don't know if I can say that on here or not, but I was drinking beer with my dad one night. And I said, well, you go sell me that school. And I got me, I'm like 20, 21 years old, really cocky. He said, you're not ready. And I said, I have two problems. I said, hey, he said, you'll get it someday anyway. I said, I got two problems with that. I said, number one, I said, I like you. I says, I don't want the bad things to happen for me to get it. And number two, I don't want to wait that long. So a couple of days later, he makes me an offer and I paid for it. It was not like, hey, here's their golden goose for you, kid. It wasn't like that. He gave me $2,000 in seed money. His business partner gave me $2,000 in seed money. I had $4,000. I'm 21 years old. I'm making a $700 a month business payment, by the way, making a $1,200 a month rent payment. And I had to do that for 3 years. And of course, that was the old way where they got your test fees and all that too, Taekwondo Hapkido stuff. So 21 years old, and then boom, here we are. We're doing it. And again, that was January of 2002. May of 2002, I'm a dad. And my son now is 21 years old, gonna be a pilot. He's kicking ass, taking names. So it was just a fun year, man. And the transition of that, I remember painting the school, and my dad's the landlord was a friend of my dad, so I ended up getting a good deal on the building. And I knew, like what you said, I knew I always wanted to be self-employed. My parents were self-employed. We were kind of, like I said, they were biker parents, and we kind of reformed a little bit later, back when the biker thing wasn't a cool thing, if you know what I mean.
Right.
They weren't quite, a little different, type. And, but yeah, I knew something I wanted to do was to be self-employed. And we used to play the cash flow board game from Kiyosaki. And yeah.
Tell me a little bit more. You played football.
Yeah. Just high school football. Nothing great. Nothing big. Played high school football, played basketball, middle school. I play golf and tennis now. My golf game is terrible.
Your golf game doesn't have to be really good. You just have to have fun. That's what I keep telling myself.
I tell you, the less balls I lose on the course, the more fun I have playing the game.
That's all. Listen, if I can get through 18 holes without losing a ball, that's definitely a good day, right?
Yeah, definitely a win.
So, but you didn't play football, basketball, growing up, just mostly in high school, or did you play other sports while you were doing martial arts? Yeah.
Yeah, I was a jock, still am, I was a jock. So I played basketball. Really, basketball is my second love, and I don't know, maybe I could have played some college, who knows? Definitely very little, if that, but, basketball I enjoyed. Football, I played a little, wasn't great at it. But yeah, I was a jock, played every sport there was, and then karate was definitely something that I enjoyed too. So for me, whenever I talk to martial art guys, it's cool you sharing your story about, your parents and, what they did. It's cool because I'm more than just a karate guy. You know what I'm saying? And I think it makes things interesting when you can talk about more topics, more subjects.
Yeah, for sure. Now you started martial arts at 5. I'm assuming that was not necessarily your choice. Dad was already a martial artist and had a school, or How did that happen?
Yeah, no. So my dad and mom from Chicago, South Side Chicago. My dad was in Vietnam, stationed in Thailand or in Vietnam. And, they got together, came down here to Kentucky. I tease people. I say, I think it was the witness protection program. But yeah, no, he picked me up actually at kindergarten and said, hey, there's a new Taekwondo school opening in town. Back then, I think you were what, Tang Sudo Mudakwon? I think you're style.
Tang Sudo, yep.
I thought, yep. Did some of my homework here. And back then, though, they had the carpet floor. Yep. It wasn't, if you got lucky, you got that nice wooden floor, right? That whole, but not back then. It was a carpet floor with the duct tape on it. And that's how we started. And my dad said, hey, you want to try this karate school out, Taekwondo, karate, whatever. I said, sure, why not? So that's how we started. And I would ride the back of his motorcycle, which is a story I can't say online where it came from. But I'd ride the back of his motorcycle and I would have our gear bags. I'd have his gear bag and mine. I'm 5 years old, riding the back of my dad's Harley, going to karate class.
Nice.
Yeah.
Everybody had to think you were the cool kid.
Yeah. I just didn't know it.
Yeah, right. Not at that time.
I didn't get the memo on that one, but yeah.
So, you started at 5 and, probably not a lot of memories, of that time necessarily, but what made you stick to martial arts?
It's a great question. It's, and I've done other things. I was a director of the YMCA temporarily, interim director of the Y. Again, I was a landlord for a while and I'll become a landlord again. I just knew martial arts, always enjoyed it. It was something I was good at. I tease people. I say, I'm no good at flipping hamburgers. In fact, me and Marty Eubanks, Ken Eubanks' son, the great Ken Eubanks, rest in peace. We tease about, we're like, we got to make martial arts work because we're no good at anything else. And again, I've done other things and this and that, but yeah, I knew, and I grew up in it right when it was changing. Because remember in the late 80s, you had the Karate Kids and all that stuff going on. And the Ninja Turtles came out in about 89, 90, right? And then you really only had EFC back then. And that's when Andrew Wood kind of broke on his own. Graydon was later. I mean, you had some of these OGs that were doing their thing. And, at that point, it was becoming, hey, man, you can make this a career. You know what I'm saying? It started happening, Grandmaster Clark, which I watched your interview that you did with him. That was really cool. Really cool, actually. He gave you some really good nuggets on that. I was writing notes while watching it. And, but yeah, that's when I ever started becoming, hey, you do real well. And again, I go back to Andrew Wood. That was the guy that was driving the Ferraris in the 90s. They had the martial arts Kaizen, the martial arts America and all that. And I said, I want to be that motivated me. That inspired me.
Yeah. Well, I can remember Andrew Wood, how to make over $100,000, teaching martial arts. Right. I remember when I was teaching for my instructor, and I asked him, I said, can I photocopy this? I remember photocopying like every page into a binder and reading that early on. So I definitely remember that. It's funny you brought up earlier how, I coached with Maya for almost 10 to 12 years with Maya. But prior to that, I was never part of EFC. I was never part of I didn't do any of the other groups per se. So I really didn't even, I opened my martial arts school in 1996. Yeah. I didn't go to my first business seminar until I think 2004, 2005. I joined Maya in 2006. So like 10 years of running a martial arts school, literally by the seat of my pants, not knowing what the hell I'm doing because, I graduated high school. I went to college. I had a 2-year associate's degree at a community college, but, I didn't really have an education, a background in any business at all. So going to Maya and learning about it, for me, it was so much later in life. It sounds like you were learning this stuff, kind of early on, almost from the beginning.
As a matter of fact, Andrew Wood's first seminar, El Toro, California, and I still follow him on Facebook. I had dinner with him about 5 years ago, man. That was so cool, And anyway, El Toro, California, I think I'm like 10 years old. My dad, it was his first seminar, and that was a business seminar for us. That was the first one we went to, the first one he did. And then some guy gave us a ride to the airport, and his name was Fariborj.
Yeah, Master Fariborj. Yeah,
Fariborj. Yeah. He gave us a ride to the airport, And again, I'm 10 years old. We went back out again the next year, my oldest sister, and did Andrew's next thing. And then we did the Kaizen Club and all his stuff after that. So you're right. I was raised at 9, 10 to where I'm okay. This is the way, this is kind of the professional way of doing it. Mm-hmm. And then of course, the EFCs, United Professionals, Premier, all those guys did all, and still doing those things.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit more. Were you a competitor? Were you, did you focus more on your teaching and coaching? What was kind of, when you first opened your school,
right.
what were your goals? I mean, what were your immediate goals other than, hey, I'm going to open a business and probably I want to make money, right? Make a living.
Right.
What were some of your other goals for your school when you first opened up?
So it's a great question. So when I got into it, I knew I wanted to be self-employed. My dad had 2 U.S. patents, literally U.S. patents. My mom, they had different businesses. Now we were nothing special at all, but at that point they were getting it together well. Finances were getting better. So I knew I wanted to be that route. And I knew that was kind of my DNA. When I became self-employed, I said, you know what, I want to obviously build big school. I want to have multiple schools too, because back then that was starting to hit, in 2002, which I know was much later, but that was hitting. Wanted to do that. And then I became a fight promoter when I was 25. So about 3 years later, 2-3 years later, I got into the whole fight promoting game. Bought a boxing ring, put on kickboxing WKA shows. I fought in the cage in 2016, and then MMA here in Kentucky. Back then, I brought in Dan the Beast Severin. He fought on one of my cars. He was our headliner that we brought in. Shout out to the Beast. Great guy. So I kind of started getting into that, and I was getting into promoting karate tournaments. Now, to back up, you're right. From 87, 88 on, I was competing in karate tournaments, kickboxing, done some grappling. So, yeah, I always would compete. Yes, enjoyed it. But again, back to that entrepreneurial mindset, I noticed that the promoters were the ones that were doing very well. Or could do very well. Now, granted, some days you lose your shirt, but I could tell they were doing well. And that's when I kind of got into the fight game. And that's when I got into all those kinds of things. But yeah, I was a licensed boxing promoter from the state of Kentucky at 23 or 25 years old.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Very cool. So, so you kind of had this, this vision of, what you wanted to become, right? You had this vision of being an entrepreneur and being someone that wanted to be, that next level, right? Yeah. Because, sometimes, well, I'll just say for myself, when I opened my business, I thought, well, number one, my brother went into construction. My dad had been in construction for 40 plus years. I did not want to go into construction. So what am I good at? I'm pretty good at teaching martial arts. I'm pretty good at, I was competing a little, not on a real high level, but I just enjoyed it. And I said, dude, if I could just get paid and I didn't even think about making a living, just like if I could just make some money teaching martial arts. And, early as a teenager, making private lesson money was huge. I was like, dude, if I could do this forever, this would be amazing.
Right.
But in the beginning, I did not have the vision of opening multiple schools. I never thought of hiring employees. I just thought like, I'm going to open a school. I'm going to teach classes. I get to, play all day, work out all day, train all day, and really just enjoyed it. It wasn't until I started to, a family, which was a few years later, that's when things started to change for me. But I guess going back to my question, like your vision, your overall vision, what was that?
It was obviously make a great living. I was in a small town, and granted I had I was a dad with a son at 21 years old. So I had to make a decent living anyway to cover all that. Granted, I'm still young and dumb, still doing things I probably shouldn't be doing then, and then, run the roads and all that. But, I wanted to make a good living. I wanted to impact the community, joined all the Chamber of Commerce, the Rotary Club, did all that as well. So I got in, and again, it's a small town, and I went to high school there, grew up there. So I knew everybody. I had hometown advantage. But I did want to do multiple schools. And then my dad was also into some of the kickboxing stuff in the 90s through ISKA and IKF. And that's when later on I said, you know what, I want to do some of that too. So I got into that as a promoter, as a referee, and then MMA later with Jimmy McMurtry, Kentucky Fighting Channel. Shout out to him. So my vision was, let's have a couple of good schools. Let's make a good living. Cool. Now let's also play some of this other stuff. Let's get into the promoter business. So I wanted to do both. Plus I have adult ADD and I get bored easy. So I was like, let's try it out. You know what I'm saying? Let's try it out. And if I can have fun doing it, shit, let's do it. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so let's talk about your hometown now.
Yeah.
Did you grow up in the same
Mhm.
area all the way through, and that's where your school or schools are now?
It was. No, yes, it was. So growing up, yes, first school, yes, sold that back in 2010. And I moved about 45 minutes to an hour north, more in central Kentucky, prior to Louisville, the Derby, Lexington. So my schools are now around the Lexington region, and opened up the first school in 2010 up here. And then we got up to actually 5 schools last year. I sold one of them. And then we're at 4 right now. And then I'll go back to probably 5, hopefully beginning of next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about Kentucky. I'm a California boy. Born and raised Southern California.
Yep.
I literally live 10 miles or less from the hospital that I was born in.
Oh, wow.
And it's like I have always been within 20 miles of the same area my whole life in California.
What part you said SoCal?
SoCal, yes, sir.
What part?
Ventura County.
That's outside LA, by LA?
Yeah. So when you brought up Farbors earlier, Farbors is in the Chatsworth area. San Fernando Valley. He's, 20, 25 minutes from me. And one of his students, Mark Cox, I don't know if you know Mr. Cox. Mark Cox is one of Farbor's students, and that's my connection with him. So 45 minutes outside north of LA, and 90 minutes from Santa Barbara.
Yeah. I was in San Diego last year. Fred De Palma had his event out there. I was out there speaking at that event. It's our first one that I've actually spoke at professionally, on the business side of things. So I really like it out there. I was out in Santa Monica Pier a couple years ago, went to Muscle Beach, and went to the Viper Lounge in Hollywood, and, did the whole thing. So love SoCal. Great area.
It's interesting because I've lived here my entire life, and sometimes, I go, we'll go out and we'll have dinner in Malibu, or we'll just drive down the coast. And I go, why don't we do this more often? Like, we live right here, but we don't, and people die to come here from, all over the country, just to visit this area. But if they just get the tax rate down, the taxes down, it'd be okay, wouldn't it? Well, there's a little bit more wrong with this state than the taxes.
Well, I figure I'd just kind of go there and then pull back.
Good call.
Yeah.
But tell me more about Kentucky. I don't think that I've ever visited Kentucky or been anywhere near. So tell me, what's it like? What's the culture like?
Kentucky's a unique state. It's a good state, unique state. We're landlocked, so now we do have the Ohio River and the Mississippi River as well on the far side. I was just in Louisville, Kentucky over the weekend. Went to visit another comedy show. I love hitting comedy shows. Went to the Kentucky Derby back in early May. First time I'd ever been to the Derby, so that was a lot of fun. Known for horse racing, definitely horse racing, big deal here. We have races year round. Obviously, bourbon country. In fact, your probably old colleague, Adam Parman, my consultant, was here back in February, March with Michael Bank. Michael Bank's getting married.
Yes, sir.
And I think Michael.
Yes.
They all came up and we did the bourbon tours and trails and tastings. We did that like for a week.
Cool.
That was cool.
Super fun.
Yeah.
Right on. Excellent. Well, let's get back to, the schools now and the schools, that you're running. What have been your biggest challenges as a business owner, as a martial arts school owner, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Yeah, I think there's a number of them. That's a great question. I would say, obviously, we're all going to say staffing. Yeah, I think most would say that. As for COVID, people say, COVID affected you, this and that. Well, we're in a kind of a red state, so it wasn't that bad, for us. I mean, I'm saying,
lucky you.
Yeah, I know. And I'm just speaking, I'm trying not to go real political unless you want to, but I just we were a state, just it wasn't that bad, for regulations and this and that. And I'll tell you my opinion on that another time if you want. So it wasn't too bad for us, staffing for sure. But in the beginning, remember when you introduced me, you talked about creating partnerships for your staff too. And I think, and I've done a lot of consulting. I was a consultant for Greg Silva when he had the Corner Man program back in about 10, 11. I did that for a hot minute. And, a guy's just got to look at what he wants to do with his schools. If a guy says, hey, I want to have one school, cool. Then there may be a certain upper mobility for your staff. If a guy says, hey, I want to do multiple schools, okay, what does that look like? So I think staffing would be the big one. And as you know, the biggest thing I think in our industry is we don't have an instructor college. There's barber school, there's cosmetology schools, all kinds of vocational schools. We don't have one for martial arts.
Right.
Which means either A, we're homegrowing our own, growing, that's the word, growing our own, or B, we're poaching from somebody else, right? And we're hoping that they're good or at least coachable. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges I know that I dealt with too, was that. But then some of that too is me learning how to be a multi-school owner. You know, the challenges that one guy has got are totally different than the challenge of the guy that's got maybe 3 or more. And I think there's even levels, and Master Clark can talk about this much better than I ever could. But I think even having 2 schools, I wouldn't call you a guy a multi-school owner, because he can kind of micromanage both of them. You know, he can go to one, you know, the other. He can do that. Once you go to 3, I tell people it's kind of like having kids. When you got 1 kid, you spoil the kid, right? I come from a big family. When you have 2 kids, they watch each other. No big deal. When you go to 3, there's the 2. Where's that 3rd one? Right? Where's that 3rd? Where is he at? He's up to no good. There's always that one is up to no good. And I think once you get the multi-schools 3 and above, and Kyoshi Kovar told me that. Well, Hanshi Kovar told me that. He was like 1 and 2, no big deal. He said 3 and above, things change.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And without the proper systems, you know, that's the key word that every coach, consultant will talk with you about, is that if you don't have the right systems in your school, your school is merely personality driven. And, you know, I can pick and choose what I work on, what I focus on, but in when you have multiple schools that way, if the systems, it's like McDonald's, right? Like everybody kind of craps on McDonald's, or, you know, the way that they run their business. I don't eat their food, but there's a reason that they can run all of those locations with pretty much teenagers, because there are systems in place, right? And I'm not trying to get on the McDojo thing. I'm just saying McDonald's.
Well, we can talk about that too if you want.
Yeah, well, we definitely can, because it's a term that, holy cow, just gets thrown out there, and everybody's got their own description or own definition of what a, you know, at one point, if you made any money, you were a McDojo. I'm like, well, how do you expect us to live, right? Like if we don't make money, and then you talk about, well, if you're doing this, you're selling out. If you're doing that, you're selling out. So I don't know, if you want to dive into it, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm sure now that one of us have ever been accused of that at all either, you know, I mean, because obviously we're professional owners. I'm sure we've never been accused of that. You know, I think you're right. I think it's basically anybody that thinks you're making $1, they'll call you that. And that's just usually just something stupid to say. What would I call a McDojo? I don't know if I really, it's hard to define that. And the reason why is because what one guy likes may not be what the other guy's purpose is. Right. So let's say, I mean, everyone picks on Taekwondo. I can say this because I'm a Taekwondo guy. You're a Korean stylist, so we're cousins. You know, so like when people pick on that art, you know, per se, and again, I came up ITF, not the Olympic stuff. But even the Olympic stuff, you know, people say, oh man, that won't work. Listen, man, yoga and Tai Chi may or may not work. Okay. But if you're good at it, you're good at it. Right. So I think it just depends on what you're good at. Just like me, I love food. I just don't like Indian food a whole lot. Okay. Now for you, that may be your favorite dish. Right. You know, so to me, it's kind of the eyes of the beholder. And I think nowadays with the UFC and with so many more schools nowadays, people are going to see if you're full of it or not. You know, I think I do like some of the McDojo channels on YouTube and stuff, and they show these guys doing all these death touches and you know, the crap. That stuff's hilarious. I don't care who you are. Right. You know, that's a joke. But again, I mean, if you got a kid, and let's say you got a kid that got a black belt in Muay Thai and takes, you know, how many forms traditionally? Like 12 forms, white to black forms? Belt? Yep. Yeah. I sat at a panel once. Hey, man, does that mean the guy can't fight? No, man. I mean, he's probably damn good. I mean, so I think it just depends on what a purpose is of a school. And then I'd even go a step further. What if you live in a good neighborhood? Does an 8-year-old need to know how to fight? Is he going to beat up an adult? You know, I don't know. I'm a Krav guy too. You know, you saw my introduction. I teach a lot of Krav Maga. So I think it depends on what the purpose is. You know, a lot of the guys that want to hate on our guys that maybe compare it to, you know, sport fighting, you know, what have you. And again, I'm a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. So, okay, cool. Jiu-jitsu guys, yeah, they're going to get guys good on the ground, but how's their stand-up? You know, right. So I know it's not a direct answer for you, but I think a McDojo is just a hater term. I really do. I think it's just a term they put on, hating on people. And I'll go a step further. What if you go to the big BJJ MMA school and that coach is not there that day? What if he wants a day off? I mean, can he not do that? I mean, does he have to be stuck in chain there the whole time? So I think it's just a hater term.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% because, every school is going to have a different purpose, different goals, different vision, regardless of art. And there's the martial arts part, there's the business part, there's the leadership, there's the community service. It's like, there's so many facets to what we do. And I think when you hear that term thrown out there, McDojo, it really is just a hater type word, because anybody from any system, anybody from any style could hate on it. I mean, I have a good friend who has a really great extreme martial arts sport karate program, Raptor Extreme. Yeah. And, some people, man, his son is like super talented, right? Yeah. His son's like, 8 or 9 and performed at Karate Combat, did all kinds of stuff. And then like he'll post something on TikTok and you'll get these comments that say like, oh, well, he'd get smashed in the street. And, if he did that, I'm like, dude, are you talking about a 9-year-old? Like, of course, a grown man is not, it doesn't even relate. It's not even on the same level.
Let's keep going with that too. I love Patrick Bet-David, Valuetainment. His channel on YouTube. If you don't watch it, you ought to definitely check it out. Patrick PDD is awesome. He just interviewed Andrew Tate, by the way. And I'm sure you know that name. He's like the #1 search guy on YouTube in the world right now, Andrew Tate. But anyway, Valuetainment, Patrick Bet-David, he talks about where, unfortunately, it used to be you had to do something for people to listen to you. He says that's what it used to be. That was a good thing. He said, unfortunately, today, though, the people that are talking the most are the people doing the least. Because now people get on social media and do that. Whereas before you had to like deserve your result. I mean, like your show, I've heard of it, got respect for it. You build up your audience, you've worked your ass off, so you build up your platform. Whereas nowadays anybody can get on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. They can go anonymous even, right? Mm-hmm. And then get on there and type all the smack that they don't have the balls to say to your face.
Right.
So and that's the thing. It's just, whereas in the old days, you had to do something to get a platform. Whereas nowadays, anybody, and it's usually the people it's usually people that have way too much free time that are, that hate on everybody else, but they're the ones doing that.
Yeah. And, talking about channels and stuff, and you brought up Krav Maga, it's a one thing that, man, I watched some of the videos that go up and, on a totally different level. I worry, right, about stuff that gets put up, because like some of the stuff that's put up, man, like could literally get somebody killed. I've seen some gun defense and knife defense, and I'm just like, I just wouldn't even post that, because it's so bad. And I'm not trying to like hate on anybody. I'm just like, that literally could get someone hurt and get somebody killed. It just drives me nuts.
You bring up a good point. I saw where you did a 1st or 2nd degree Krav test recently.
2nd degree, yes, sir.
Okay, congrats.
Thank you.
I went to Wingate back in 2017. I went to Israel, trained over there, got certified, went through Guy Moore, did the whole thing, man. One of the best experiences I've ever had. It was really cool. Krav's going through a unique turn right now, and I teach Krav courses through our Krav association that I'm in. I'm a 4th degree, teach instructor courses, all that good stuff. It's just going through a weird thing, and this is, I think, all the martial arts a little bit. I know what you're saying. Hey, that technique may or may not work. Well, things have changed too. And that goes back to, I know like Bruce Lee's got 2 sets of followers. The one that says, and you can even go religious on this too, where one says, I'm going to teach it the way Bruce taught it. Traditional, no evolution. Mm-hmm. And then the other part says, no, Bruce was all about throw out the thing that doesn't work, keep what works, always evolving. Well, I know we were in Israel. They were telling us how in the old days, they'd kind of stab you kind of like that the whole time. Right. They say nowadays, especially in Jerusalem, and I was in Jerusalem, they say guys will come up, they'll hide the knife, they'll take it out, cut, and they'll go away. Mm-hmm. So the attacks of terrorists and tactics have changed. Right. So just like in Hapkido, we had 20 wrist lock defenses, same side wrist grab. Well, you know why? Because in the 1700s, they used to draw swords to fight. So things have evolved and changed. So A, you're right. There's some bad technique put out there. But then B, it's also got to be measured against, okay, is this just tradition? Is this just us keeping the art the way it is? Or are we trying to keep modern as well? Because things do change. Bad guys change. Weapons change. I mean, gun defense is probably a real deal here in America. In England, they took away everyone's guns. I don't know if it's a big deal over there. I don't know, you know?
Right.
So things do change, you know, and the way bad guys fight have changed too. And with the UFC, bad guys gotten better. Now bad guys might know some ground.
Right.
They may know some Thai, you know, it's not, you know, it's evolved.
Yeah. Well, you know, on that line, things have definitely evolved. I mean, in every school, you know, like you said, I came from a very traditional Tong Soo Do background, Chuck Norris lineage, all the way down. And that's actually how I got involved in Krav Maga, is that my instructor, Mark Cox, started branching out into Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, Krav Maga, because the self-defense that we were doing, and I just say it, like, it was make-believe. It was
the 1 steps and 3 steps, right?
Yeah, performance-based stuff that look good, but not always the most practical. And I still think that it's fun to do that stuff that's make-believe. You know, forms are make-believe. So it's still fun to learn it and do it and train it. But we evolved and we wanted to bring something else in. Every school, you know, in the last couple decades has really stepped that up. And so to your point, like, what bad guys, right? I mean, anybody that's trained in martial arts that has a bad day or has bad intentions now has, you know, potentially so much more training. You just don't know. And I think one of the terms that my instructor uses a lot is that, you know, we always train for a worthy opponent. Whatever we're doing, we need to train for a worthy opponent, rather than just training a technique because that's the technique. And I don't want to say battle testing, but pressure testing is a better word, right? Pressure testing, you know, what we do and how we do it and how we teach, you know, just takes it to a whole new level. So,
well, and back to Krav too, like Roy Miller did a lot of books, Meditations on Violence, another thing on violence. And we read about it. Decker wrote some books too on self-defense, a lot of the violent stuff. And Roy Miller talks about how there's really like 7 different types of combat. Everything from a duel to a sporting match, you know, to multiple attackers, to are we in a battlefield? You know, is it that? So there's so many different ways of combat, you know. Hey, did you hit on my girlfriend? Okay. And then is it that? You know, am I in the wrong part of town? So there's so many different types of combat. And I think that goes along with it too. But as for techniques, I mean, listen, the more I do things, it's hard to keep up the latest trends. Although I think it's good, but schools that still teach the classical arts, as long as they're open and honest about it, I think it's totally fine. And I still love the classical arts. I was teaching an old Taekwondo form the other day. I still enjoy it. And then the challenge you run into with maybe doing guys that has to be either battle tested or cage tested. That seems to be the 2 measuring sticks, right? Or work in the cage or work in a real fight. Well, the challenge with that is, man, working with those people, sometimes they're going to BS everything, you know, and maybe they can't do it, but you can. And then you run into that. So I think you're always going to you can never please everybody, number one.
Right.
And, you know, and number 2 is just try to keep up with all that. It is just fun. And then you got to look at the culture of your school. I know we haven't gotten into internal operations yet, but like, you know, what culture do you want to have around you? You know, I know there was a big level Krav guy, I don't want to mention his name here, who said one of the biggest mistakes he made when he started his association is he took away the belts. And he thought that was the way to go. And kind of find out, no, the belts showed respect, honor, and people that came in the door, they knew who was good at something. So it kept it civilized. Right.
Yeah, for sure. Well, listen, as martial artists, we can continue down this path all day long, right? Like we could just talk shop, about martial arts so easily. And that's what happens a lot of times on the show. But I want to kind of bring it back to, you know, the theme and the idea of bringing motivation and inspiration. So my next question is, who are your mentors? How did you find them, or how did you start working with them, and how did they change things for you?
Yeah, it's really cool, man. I have had a privilege, and I still got all their cell phone numbers for about most of my mentors. And some are popular right now, and some are not. But I know early on again, Andrew Wood was definitely a big motivation for me. Later on, following Greg Silva was big for me. I joined United Professionals when I was like 23 years old. I was one of the original premier schools under Barry Vanover. And I know they got, their stuff going on right now, but that was back when there was a license. I was one of the original schools, and I was actually I tested on the original panel of black belts for Premier. So I tested with Barry. He was on the floor. We're all testing, punching, doing Krav and Muay Thai together. So that was definitely an influence. Kiyoshi Kovar, Hanchi Kovar, got to train under him a little bit from a business standpoint, and with him, Paul Garcia, I think the world of Stingo, like him a lot too. Right now, I'm kind of following Grandmaster Clark a lot. Sergio von Schmeling, Grandmaster von Schmeling. I'm going to his event in a couple of weeks down in Orlando, so I get to follow him. Of course, Metzger and Silverman, those cats, I've always looked up to those guys. Those guys are good. So those would be some of the influences I've had, and most of them I can call them on their cell phone right now, and they'll answer.
Yeah, well, and I'm familiar with every name that you just mentioned. Yep. And you know what I love about all of those people is that they're so willing to help, and so willing to give, and so willing to share. And I just think that that's a very unique thing. But I have found that most of the people that have the highest levels of success want to bring other people up and not necessarily hold them down. I can remember being a younger school owner and kind of searching for those people to help. And I feel like maybe I kind of hit some walls, because it was like, well, if you get too good, then that's going to be bad for me. But the further along that I went and started hitting the, Mike Metzger, Frank Silverman, Robbie Beard, three of the most influential businessmen for me, they changed my life. By their consulting and becoming part of their team. But what I really loved was the fact that they were so willing to share and so willing to help, and so, just that epitome of successful people help lift other people up. Have you ever faced that challenge of, the door being closed in your face and being shut down?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've dealt with that with a consultant not too long ago. And again, I'm all about being a capitalist. I mean, that's who I am. But yeah, I definitely dealt with that as well. Doing those things. So yeah, I've had doors shut, but I've realized, hey, there's always another door. There's always other people out there that know the subject material very well. But yeah, I mean, I've had it happen multiple times, or maybe things change in their situation, where maybe they implode, stuff like that has happened. So, but yeah, it happens, man. I think you talk about from a motivation standpoint, I always tell people to keep going, keep rocking, keep going. Bedros Koulian's another one I try to follow as well. And I would just say, there's always someone willing to help.
Yeah. You brought up, Andrew Wood, Kiyosaki before, reading material. So another thing that I when I'm talking with leaders is I always want to know, what are you reading right now? What is your focus right now?
Yeah. Right now I'm enjoying, I do a lot of studying, a lot of YouTube studying. Right now I'm studying, a lot of I like the Grandmaster Clark thing, a lot of the stuff he's doing. Personally, right now I'm reading Will Chamberlain's autobiography.
Nice.
Yeah. Again, I'm a jock. Yeah.
I love, if I'm going to read something, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to pick up an autobiography or a biography on someone. I think, I'm a huge professional wrestling fan. I don't know if you could tell by my video.
I saw that. It was cool. Yeah. Who's your favorite? Who's your favorite?
Favorite pro wrestler of all time? I patterned myself after Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. He was always my favorite because he was the karate guy. I love professional wrestling, but I love karate. He came out wearing the gi, wearing the black belt, wearing the headband. I thought that was the coolest. And then, more recently, John Cena, Triple H, Shawn Michaels. Those are
the Heartbreak Kid. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
but yeah, I love picking up a biography. I read
Mhm.
probably every biography of every professional wrestler that has
I
one.
read Hogan's. Hogan's was good.
Hogan's was Mick Foley's was really good.
I got my brother-in-law is a big wrestling fan, and he loved Foley's quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you
Go
watch
ahead.
the interview of Ric Flair on Rogan?
No.
Oh, it was
Is it
about 2
recent?
weeks ago. Yeah, about 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah, Ric Flair was on Joe Rogan, and oh my goodness, you felt like Joe Rogan was interviewing his uncle or something like that. It was crazy. Flair telling the stories.
Yeah.
And I know he was at one of the super shows.
Yep.
I think one of the guys brought him in, but man, that was crazy. Just his life for all those years and how he somehow still got together.
Well, I've read a couple books on him, and most recently I read his daughter's book, Charlotte's book, which talks a lot about Ric Flair's life. And
she's very hot.
she's an athlete for sure too.
Yeah.
And at that super show, I met Ric Flair. I remember just kind of getting to sit and talk to him, and you just feel like I don't get starstruck too often, but like I don't know, pro wrestlers, I'm just like, whoa, like those are my superheroes growing up.
Yeah.
Watching those guys. But yeah, picking up a biography. And I read Anthony Bourdain. I read a book about him recently. Just different stuff, man, and just trying to, because again, like we're talking about on the show, like when you learn about someone's life, I take 2 lessons away from it, and I try to teach my kids the same thing. I try to talk to my students. Like when you watch somebody or you read about somebody, you're going to learn one of 2 things. You're going to learn either what you want to do and what you want to be like, or you're going to read the opposite or see the opposite of what you don't want to become and learn from those mistakes. And so, anything else that you're reading? How about podcasts? Podcasts other than this one.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Podcasts. Love Joe Rogan. Big fan. Huge fan. Again, Valuetainment, Patrick Bet-David. Highly recommend that. He's got a conference coming up. He's doing in Miami. He's got Tom Brady coming in, Mike Tyson coming in.
Wow.
Some big heavy hitters, man, as his panel. Grant Cardone. I like Cardone stuff as well. Follow his stuff. I have a couple other podcasts I follow, more of the, libertarian kind of stuff. I like that too, live and let live. So I follow a lot of that as well. But yeah, those would be the big ones. I'm looking at my bookshelves here. Of course, I've got the Wolf of Wall Street. I got that book up, to read that one. The movie was good. So now time to read the book by Jordan Belfort. Of course, Tony Robbins. I like his stuff as well. You
ever listen to Andy Frisella, created 75 Hard?
No.
Check him out. That's 75 Hard is a program that you'll learn about. Like there's many programs out there, but it all about discipline and drinking a gallon of water a day, doing 2 workouts a day, choosing your diet. It's a whole deal. But Andy Frisella, I think if you like if I'm in the right genre here, I think that you'll really enjoy him. So he drops a lot of F-bombs too, and he's just pretty raw and real. Anyway, check it out.
I like Bedros Keuilian's one a lot. He owns the Fit Body Bootcamp franchises. And wrote the book Man Up, and that's a good book for females too, by the way. Excellent book. I get to go see him every so often. Anytime I get the chance to sneak out there, I do. His stuff's really good. And he keeps it real. I just like guys like that. They keep it real, moving forward. When you're talking about motivation, inspiration, I would tell anybody, hey, man, it's the whole thing that your grandma taught you, the sum of the top 5 people you hang out with. And that's true, and I think I would tell people, hey, man, get a mentor, hang out with cool people, hang out with people that are going to places you want to go, hang around those good things, get good stuff in your mind. The world's negative enough, right? So get that good stuff in your mind. And I think the biggest thing, man, just work out a bunch too. I know that may sound like a jock mentality, but my goodness. I own 4 locations. I know you got a lot of things you do, man. Oh man. If I sit and stew on it, that's not good for anybody.
Right.
But if I get out there and I'm curling, I'm bench pressing, doing my thing, going to boot camp. Okay. Much better.
Right. Well, listen, as martial artists, it's just kind of in our DNA to want to be moving and working out and keeping our body and mind in sync a little bit more. Like getting up in the morning, the first thing that I do, whether I want to or not, is I got to hit the gym. And for me, it comes down to it, making it a priority, because if I don't hit the gym, I know what's going to happen. I'm going to end up going into the office. I'm going to get busy. I'm going to leave the office with, 5 more things that I know I got to do tomorrow. And then I'm hitting the next appointment, and then the next appointment, and I'm going. And before I know it, it's like, I'll hit the gym tomorrow. So I'm like, no, I'm going to hit the gym first thing. I wake up, have my, huge glass of water as quickly as possible, hit my reading, get my reading in. Cause same thing. If I don't read first thing in the morning, I probably won't read a whole lot the rest of the day. So I get that in, go hit the gym, and then I hit the office. And for me, that just mentally, the mental clarity that I get from my workout, because even during my workouts, I'm kind of getting my list a little bit fine-tuned and ready, and hitting some social media and stuff. But
when I'm at the gym, I actually don't bring my phone in at all.
I couldn't survive.
That's why I do it, man. I do it. My staff know if they holler at me during that time, and it really is, emergency, better call the gym. But now if I'm doing cardio, like if I'm going in on a day and just doing cardio, which doesn't happen very often, I used to try to hit boot camp or grapple for that. But if it's me at the gym, I'm the elliptical. Okay, I'm bringing the phone in for that. But even then, it's do not disturb. But if I'm doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday in the weight room, I purpose, in fact, Planet Fitness, one of the gyms I go to, they gave me a key. I feel like one of those old guys in the 90s. They gave me a keychain because they want you to use your phone, right, to scan in. And I actually use a keychain to use the barcode scanner, and because I won't bring my phone in. It stays in the truck. Then I come out, look at my truck, see what's going on for the day. But yeah, that is my time to go in there and just.
Yep. Yeah. Well, we all have our, our lineup in our day of, of what we do. And, well, the other book I was going to throw out too. I don't know. Please. You ever read David Goggins? You read his books? Oh yeah. David Goggins is great. That fits all in that genre that we were talking about. I like him. Of course, Jocko's good too. Jocko's good for sure. Jocko's really good. So yeah, most definitely. Well, we're just about here at the end of the hour, and I have enjoyed this for a number of reasons. Number one, I love the opportunity that I get to know someone a little. You never know how much you can learn in just an hour about a person, and just kind of the takeaways that come with it. And I hope that everybody that is watching this today, or maybe watching this later on a replay, let us know. First of all, let us know, comment, and let us know what your biggest takeaway is from here today, or share a story with us as well. But it's just it's great, like you said. You are the sum of the 5 closest people around you, and one of the reasons that I like doing the podcast every week is I force myself to surround myself with the people that I want to be most like. And as I said at the beginning, I'm checking in with everybody. Social media can be a great, powerful tool for us to know, who do I want to associate with? Who do I want to talk with? Who do I want to, get to know a little bit more? And then on the flip side, maybe I unfriend the other ones and let those guys go. But anyway, I've really enjoyed this hour, just getting to know you a whole lot more, and want to wish you all the best and continuing in your great success. Is there anything else that you want to close the show with? Any other upcoming events, upcoming goals, anything else you want to throw out there today? I finally got on that. Master Clark, I was at his place in Jacksonville in January, and then I saw him at Cozumel, the Cos Talks in January, and then in February in Cozumel. And he talked about doing the goal setting grid, get your goals set down, typing them up, and then also keeping them on you. And that's what I started doing too. And so today in my staff meeting, we went over the 4 types of goals. So we did that, and I'm trying to get the lighting good here, right? But we went over how to set goals. So I think that is huge, just writing them down. And you can tell, it's funny, we went over the whole meeting. We talked about business and upcoming events and this and that. And then they were dialed in. But once I went over goal setting and showed them kind of how to do it, the beginner way of doing it, crash course, man, they got all excited. Started talking about the credit scores, talking about how much money they want to save up, the houses they're buying. So, I mean, that will get, if you're depressed and having issues, man, write down some goals that you want to do. Do that. And then the other advice I would give anybody too, have thick skin, because it's a contact sport, especially if you are self-employed, it's a contact sport. And then the other advice I'd give somebody, if you're not happy about a situation, man, you can fix it. Take charge, don't be the victim.
what they say, if it's got to be, it's up to me, so, take charge and set goals, have thick skin, surround yourself with cool people. Hey, life's not that bad. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I read a meme or a post today, Monday, new start to the week. And I'm thinking that's kind of like every day. It doesn't matter if it's Monday or Tuesday or every day, wake up. It's we all have our struggles. We all have our challenges. We all have our baggage. But like you said, at the end of the day, you get to choose like what you're going to do next. You get to make the next move. The question is, will you make that next move, or will you sit right where you're at and allow yourself to continue feeling the way you're feeling?
And that's what I told my staff today, man. We were talking about that. I said, listen, guys, we're talking about like career goals, finance, Tony Robbins' career goals, finance goals. I say, guys, there's going to be a number there. It's just whether it's the number you want or not. Right. There's going to be a number. If you don't hit the gym, there's going to be a number there. Is it the number you want? So, all life is measured, it's all numbers, everything. And, you can do it by default, or you can do it by accident and default, or you can do it by purpose.
That's right.
I think that's the better way to go, in my humble opinion.
All right. Well, I love it. I appreciate it. I appreciate your time. Thanks for being on the show today. Thank you to everybody watching. Again, please follow us, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Master Motivation Podcast. Let us know if there is anything that you want us to talk about next on the next show, or if there's a specific guest in mind that you think would be great to have on the show. I would love to know, but please comment and share. And Mr. Schneider, thank you so much for being on again today.
My pleasure, Master Flame. Have a good day, sir.
All right, guys, everybody go out and make it a great day. Have a great week, and we'll see you real soon.